Hi, welcome back to my channel. So it's been a little bit of time. I know that I said several times on my community page that I was going to come out with a video within a week of me posting that on my community page, but here's the thing. I think Only Murders in the Building Season 4 broke my brain a little bit to the point where every time I tried to come back and film a new video and I tried to sit down in front of my computer and record, I could not formulate the necessary words to make any sort of content, and then I would just kind of get frustrated and just do something else. I needed a little bit of time to reflect, to recuperate, to unfuck the brain cells that have been officially rotted from making videos about that show. But now I'm back. It's 2025 and we are here to talk about a very, very special project. I'm very excited about that. Today we're going to be talking about Traitors Season 3. I'm so excited. I fucking love this show. I think this is going to be fun. Spoiler alert! Spoiler! Spoiler! If you have not seen through Season 3, Episode 3 of The Traitors. And without further ado, let's get started. Is the camera crooked? I can't tell. If you are new to my channel, hi, hello, my name is Megan. By day, I'm an attorney, and by night, I make videos about film and television shows that I find to be interesting. I have never covered reality television shows on my channel before. I have very seriously considered making a video about Love is Blind, but then I waited too long, and then I felt like no one was going to give a shit by the time I actually put the video out, although I think there's another season coming out next month. If you guys want me to talk about Love is Blind, I will make a video about Love is Blind. Just let me know in the comment section. I'm not really sure how the structure is going to actually play out, what I have outlined for my coverage about Traitors in this video, so it might be a little wonky, but bear with me. I'm still trying to experiment with some shit. If you like unnecessarily long videos talking about film and television shows, then maybe consider liking, subscribing, commenting down below what other content you want me to cover. And yeah, welcome. Let's talk about The Traitors. So let's start by talking a little bit about what exactly The Traitors is. If you are not familiar with the show, allow me to enlighten you. Now, The Traitors is essentially a combination of the game Mafia meets the game Among Us. You have a group of 20-something contestants that are coming together to participate in various different tasks every episode, and if you are successful in whatever tasks the producers are making you do, you put money in this collective pot. Each week, through various different methods, these contestants are eliminated, and the ones that are left standing at the end of the season earned the money that was earned in the prize pot throughout the season. The American version of The Traitors has 3 seasons. This is its 3rd one. The vast majority of the contestants are reality television stars. I think the first season had half reality television contestants and then half regular people, and then the following 2 seasons just had reality TV stars, people from like Big Brother, Survivor, The Bachelor franchise. I think there was a couple people from Love Island, The Challenge, a lot of people from the Real Housewives franchise, etc. Other seasons in other countries such as UK, New Zealand, Australia, those have just regular people. In the American version, which is the one that we're going to be talking about, it takes place in Scotland, and a lot of the filming takes place in this amazing Scottish castle, and it is hosted by my king, my Lord and Savior, Alan Cumming. I think one of my favorite things personally that I love about The Traitors is just how fucking over the top everything is. The theatrics with which they conduct every single challenge, the outfits that people wear, the outfits that Alan Cumming wears, everything this show does, it always dials it up to like an extra meter of like 100. And I feel like that's just so much fun. When you see reality television stars having cockroaches and maggots dropped on their heads, I mean, how can you not love that? How does the game work exactly? So you have this group of 20-something contestants, and they're basically categorized into 2 different groups. You have the Faithfuls and you have the Traitors. So the Faithfuls constitute the vast majority of our contestant pool. Faithfuls can be either murdered by the Traitors or they can be banished by the collective group at the round table discussion. Their goal is to essentially put money in the pot, just like the Traitors, and then also suss out who the Traitors are amongst them and vote them out at the round table discussion and banish them from the castle. And then you also have the Traitors. Now, the Traitors are selected at the beginning of the season. Everybody sits blindfolded around around this table, and Alan Cummings goes and like taps a couple people on the shoulder, and if you're tapped, you are a traitor. So we start with like 3 or 4 at the beginning of most seasons, and then throughout the season you can also recruit traitors if one gets banished. Now, the goal of the traitors is also to earn money and put it in this collective pot, but the traitors have the objective of trying to trick the faithfuls into thinking that other faithfuls are traitors and having them get voted out at banishment rather than the actual traitors. And then the traitors meet in the middle of the night, and each time they vote to murder somebody, one of the faithfuls, so that they just can't participate in the game anymore. Now, if a traitor is one of the very small group of people left at the very end of this game, all of the traitors that are left standing get to split the prize pot. The goal of the faithfuls is to try to weed everybody out, and if they are successful in doing that, then all of the faithfuls who are left at the end get to split the pot. So if you even have one, the traitor wins everything. So it's really important to get all of the traitors out. That's basically the goal of the faithfuls. So there are essentially 3 main functions of the traitors competition. You have the money-making portion of the episode, you have the murder part of the episode, and then you have the roundtable/banishment part of the episode. Now, starting with the money-making function, it usually requires all of the contestants to come together to do some sort of kooky obstacle course or challenge of some sort, where if they are successful, then they get to put money in the prize pot. You also have the murders, which essentially requires the traitors to come together. They get to wear cloaks, they wear masks sometimes, they're carrying like this like lantern through the darkness of the castle in the middle of the night. It's all very extra and over the top. And they meet in this tower where they have to sit down and discuss who they want to murder this particular night of the competition. Now, the faithfuls are essentially completely vulnerable to murder at any given point. The traitors just essentially have to pick somebody and then they just get murdered. There are occasionally sometimes where the traitors have to do a little bit extra to kill somebody. Like sometimes they have to get somebody to drink out of a chalice, and if they successfully have somebody drink out of a chalice, then the person who drank out of it is now murdered. But most of the time they just meet in this tower and say, okay, we're murdering this person, and then they're just fucking murdered. They're completely out of the competition. The one exception and one protection that a faithful has from getting murdered is if they have a shield. Shields are sometimes things that can be earned during the money making portion of the competition. Usually there's an opportunity for somebody to like go and earn that as opposed to money that will go to the prize pot. And then finally you have the roundtable/banishment. Now this is when all the players, traitors and faithfuls, come together and they talk about who they think is a traitor in the competition, and they vote to remove them and banish them from the castle. Or the person is banished from the castle, the person reveals whether they're a traitor or not. Are you good? So, like I said, I really like this show. However, I think there are several critical flaws with the inherent concept and structure of the show The Traitors that are preventing it from being truly a masterpiece of a reality television show. And since I am doing coverage of The Traitors for season 3, I would be remiss if I didn't address my concerns and criticisms of this show and ways that I think that it could be better. One of the critical flaws is the fact that there's not enough evidence to point to whether somebody is actually a traitor or not. The structure of this show requires that the traitors and the faithfuls are competing for that same pot of money, but it also kind of creates an inherent problem that because the traitors and the faithfuls have to work together, there's really not a lot of evidence to point to whether somebody is traitorous or not, other than just kind of going off of vibes. Like, you could breathe wrong and somebody would be like, why are you breathing like that? Are you nervous? Are you upset? Are you tense because they just made you a traitor? It just doesn't really give you much to go off of other than like, hey, that person's vibe is weird. I think we should vote them off because they're a traitor. You have people literally marching around this castle being like, are you a traitor? And then if they don't say it with as much gusto as they think that they should be saying no with, they're like, oh yeah, that's my evidence. That is 100% a traitor. I have never seen more of a traitorous person in my entire life. And then they vote them out and then they're a faithful and then everyone looks like an idiot. If we had inherent things built into the competition where traitors had to do certain tasks to get advantages, that might give evidence to their traitorous identity. I think that would make the show way better because especially early on, you're basically fucked. I also think the traitors just inherently have too great of an advantage throughout the duration of the show. It always kind of cracks me up when I watch people early on at the round tables, they vote a faithful out because of course they do. Statistically, it's not hard to do that. And then everyone's freaking out like, guys, we cannot let the traitors manipulate us. We just have to vote the traitors out and then we can win. And it's like, Well, no. Theoretically, if you voted all of the traitors out back to back to back in the first couple episodes, the game isn't going to end. Traitors are not going to just immediately be removed and then the producers are like, okay, I guess we have 17 winners. The producers are always going to put new traitors into the show. They are not going to let the show end that early. No matter what you do, no matter how great your efforts are, no matter how successful you are at voting traitors out, they'll always just keep plugging more and more of them in. It almost incentivizes you to not vote them out in the first place. And that's the thing that also frustrates me too, is that people don't see it in that way. They're acting as if all of the faithfuls are able to win this competition, like, collectively, but you can't. There's only going to be a certain number of people that are going to win. I think the show protects the traitors a little bit too much, just purely from the extent that they don't want the show to end too early, but then the faithfuls just kind of get screwed by not having similar kinds of protection in place in return. So if you're a traitor, you're put at an overwhelming advantage because you're protected by the producers and the ability to recruit more and more people to win, as opposed to the faithfuls who are just sitting and waiting to die. Now that I have complained for, a decent portion of time, now let us actually talk about Traitors Season 3. I want to start by discussing our OG traitors, the traitors that were picked by Alan Cummings, aka the producers. We have, first of all, Bob the Drag Queen, who is from RuPaul's Drag Race. We also have Danielle from Big Brother. I don't understand Big Brother, as a show. I've never seen it before, but I tried to, look up the rules to it, because everybody who's on Big Brother in these shows is always like, yeah, I'm a gamer. I'm kind of one of those gamer people, and I'm really strategic, and this person was on Big Brother and he's the biggest strategist the show has ever seen, and I'm like, okay, well, what is the show about? So I looked up the rules, and from my understanding, they live in a house together, you do challenges, and then if you win the challenge, then you get to go to the store and buy things, and then you get evicted from the house. So it's like Survivor, but if Survivor had challenges that were just everyday adult activities of living in a house. How much strategy could there be with that? Maybe I need to just watch it and stop being a bitch. But Danielle is from Big Brother. I guess she never won. We also have Carolyn. She is from Survivor. She is our third traitor. And then, of course, we have Boston Rob. So Boston Rob was kind of a unique situation because initially he was brought in as somebody that would only join the cast if one of the other cast members comes forward, shakes Alan Cummings' hand, and then identifies somebody from the remaining group that they want to have exiled from the castle and not participate in the competition at all. Obviously, some of these people know each other from their prior seasons of shows, so they know each other and might have rivalries, but just immediately saying you cannot participate at all in this competition is kind of unhinged. So naturally, nobody comes forward to bring Rob into the competition, and he's led away in roped handcuffs or whatever. Then at the end of the episode, Alan reveals that because nobody came forward and picked him as being entered into the competition, that kind of sealed his fate as actually being able to enter into the competition and entering in as a traitor. So what's interesting is that when Rob does enter into the competition, the other remaining traitors don't know that he's a traitor yet until the following night. Okay, now let's actually talk about these fucking episodes. A lot of contestants, so I've tried my best to just take the main information from either the murders, the banishments, or the money contest portion, whatever the fuck you want to call it, of each episode and extracted that so we can kind of get the main flavor of what's going on. So episode 1, there's a lot of fucking people. My main takeaway from the money-making portion, so essentially they had this challenge where they had to go out onto the lake and they're in this boat, and most of these people don't know how the fuck to row a boat. Watching the housewives struggle to use an oar, that's very funny.
This side, I think this side alone needs to
Oh, right.
So they're all on this boat. They have to take money from these different checkpoints that are on little rafts across the lake, grab that money, put it back on land in this circle, set the circle on fire, and then any of the contestants, as well as all the money that is within this circle, not only do you win that money, but the contestants that are standing there get to be protected from elimination. The catch is that each time you go to one of the rafts, either the raft has money or it has the fuel or whatever supplies you need to set the fire for the circle. You have to sacrifice 2 contestants who will not be in that shield circle and that will be up for elimination. So there's a lot of tension amongst who is going to do it. There's accusations that the Survivor men and some of the other competitive men are not being fair and making all the women do it because they think the women are dead weight. So ultimately we have Dorinda, Robin, Ayan, Dolores, which are all 4 housewives, Sam, Bob the Drag Queen, Danielle, and other Bob who are sitting on the rafts and who are sacrificed and up for murder. Now 2 of them are traitors, so they cannot be murdered. So essentially you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting murdered amongst the remaining people on the raft. Bob Bob did an interesting move because he seemed to be legitimately annoyed that none of the men were standing up and sacrificing and expecting just all of the women to get up and be up for murder. So he kind of had this outburst and was like, fine, fuck it, I'm going to go sit on the raft, which he said, like, yeah, I was legitimately pissed, but it was also kind of a clever move because Bob is legitimately not concerned with getting murdered because he's a traitor. So the fact that he like did it from that motive and then actually like went and sat on the raft to contribute money to the pot, it helps that goal, it helps move the challenge along, and he's not going to get murdered, so it's no skin off his back, but it doesn't look suspicious like he's too eager to go and sit on the raft. But also at the end of this challenge, you know, they had like 35-40 minutes left to go to the final checkpoint to get the final chunk of money. They had $20,000 already, but they could have doubled it and gotten 40. Nobody else wanted to sacrifice themselves, so they just kind of went back, and everybody who did sacrifice themselves, especially Dorinda, was really pissed that they could have gotten double the money. So Dorinda comes back to the house and just starts unloading on everybody in classic Dorinda fashion. I fucking love this bitch. I love Dorinda.
The wild thing is, I didn't even see an effort. When I was getting off, there wasn't even an echo saying, no, let me go. And I would have never have done what I did for the team if I knew it wasn't an all-in.
I understand people being selfish and wanting to participate in the competition. I also feel like if you're not going to get money, but you're so concerned with being in the competition, what's the point if you can't get a lot of money? And then at the end of the episode, like I mentioned, Rob was brought back from exile and revealed that because people didn't want him in the competition, that kind of sealed his fate as actually coming back, but coming back as a traitor. And then they brought these two other random hooded people back, and they put all of them in their cages and like suspended them in the woods above the ground in these cages. It was very over the top, but it was kind of great. Episode 2 notes. Dorinda gets murdered.
How could you do this to me? Question mark.
I can never get what I want. Dorinda is like one of my most unhinged favorite housewives. I know she's really problematic. I don't want to talk about season 12 of The Real Housewives of New York City. I don't want to talk about it. But I think she's really fun and feisty, and I know she loves doing murder mystery parties at Bluestone Manor, and the fact that she got eliminated first fucking sucks. There was a little bit of contention around her murder because it seemed like the traitors were getting a little bit testy with each other about the strategy of what they wanted to do. Carolyn, I think, correctly pointed out that getting rid of Dorinda would be a bit of a risk and kind of a dumb move because Dorinda is very vocal and very chaotic, and having somebody like that in the house, she's probably going to get voted out as a traitor anyway. But because Bob and Danielle wanted to cause chaos and kind of target the housewives, as it seems, they thought that was a better option, so they got rid of Dorinda. The whole goal of targeting the housewives is to either instill fear in the housewives for thinking that they're just going to keep getting picked off one by one, or they want people to think that a housewife is a traitor and that they're double bluffing by killing a fellow housewife. It seems like both avenues are kind of picking up a little bit of traction with the group, but I still think it was a dumb move to get rid of Dorinda. So now we're venturing into the woods for the money-making portion of the episode. We have, like I said, 3 crated white men in the woods. We have Rob, who we know is a traitor now. Then we also have someone named Derek from Big Brother, I guess, and somebody named Wes from the challenge. Each of them hold a shield. How it works is that there's a bunch of random burlap sacks of coins suspended over these bushes in the woods. You have to take the coin out and you have to put it in either a slot for Rob, a slot for Wes, or a slot for Derek. If you put a slot in for Rob, that money goes towards the collective pot and it moves his crate a little bit further to the ground. If you contributed a coin to Rob cannot keep the shield for himself. Wes and Derek cannot keep the shields for themselves. They have to give it to somebody that contributed to them getting lower to the ground. So eventually all 3 get money. They all get released prior to time. Woohoo, whatever. Round table banishment. Let's fucking go. No, I forgot to mention this, but Rob, Derek, and Wes cannot get banished and they cannot get murdered, but they also cannot participate in the first round table discussion. So they all kind of have to chill for this episode. So at the round table, we essentially have a battle of Wells Adams of The Bachelor, and we have Robin Dixon, who I have a lot of very strong opinions about after watching The Real Housewives of the Potomac, duking it out to accuse the other person of being a traitor. Wells is saying Robin is a traitor because she tried to kill Dorinda to deflect from the fact that a housewife could be a traitor, and Robin thinks Wells is a traitor for some fucking reason. There's a lot of random votes for random people, a lot of stray votes that are happening throughout this round table, but ultimately Wells gets a slight majority, reveals himself to be a faithful. Everybody is upset. Robin also got a couple votes. At the end of episode 2, we have Rob meeting his fellow traitors, and everyone seems like kind of not super happy about it.
I gotta be honest, I'm not too thrilled.
Hello, it's me sitting on my bed with my new Ditto pillow. It's 1 in the morning, which is why I'm sitting on my bed. I intended to make this video about the first 3 episodes of Traitors Season 3, and I also intended to release it like a week ago, and neither of those things happened. So now we're here filming the rest of this video. So let's just jump into our coverage about episode 3. Several things to note in this episode. This was a doozy. Let's talk first about the reveal that Rob is now our 4th traitor and having the other OG traitors come to this revelation. No one is fucking happy about this situation. It is very evident and very hilarious to me that nobody is happy to have Rob join the team. Bob, the drag queen, and Danielle are on some power trip, and they think that they need to cause chaos and get rid of another housewife. The other 2, Carolyn and Rob, are trying to suggest that maybe going for chaos every single time is not a good strategy, and we have to, switch it up a little bit. Bob doesn't want to listen to anybody. He decides he wants to kill Ayan, which is personally horrible for me because I think she's hilarious.
Who the fuck murdered me?
Ayan gets killed. It's clear that Rob and Carolyn are a little bit frustrated with the fact that Bob doesn't listen to anybody. And then we see everyone's reaction to this at breakfast the next day. Speaking of breakfast the next day, Danielle and Bob are horrible actors at breakfast. They're constantly talking. They're saying way too fucking much. Danielle keeps going on and on in the confessionals about how she thinks she's an amazing actor and she has everyone fooled. And then they cut to Rob just looking so secondhand embarrassed by her.
Danielle should not talk at breakfast.
Put my odds on Bob the drag queen. He's been
So now talking about the money-making portion. We have the contestants divided into groups of 2, carrying a balloon through this fun house. Each fun house level has 4 doors. They have to figure out which door is correct to go through to make it to the next level. 3 of the doors have a clown holding a knife behind it, and they're going to run over and stab the balloon. One of them is the correct door. The first team to make it through not only gets to put money in the pot, but also gets a shield, and every successful team after that also gets money in the pot. If you want a shield, you're not going to want to go through the fun house first. And none of the teams want to go first because everyone is being really, really selfish this season. It's not that you can't be selfish. It's not that it's lost on me that there's advantages to protecting yourself and wanting to get a shield. But at a certain point, it's kind of okay, do you guys want to put any fucking money in the pot or not? Bob H., who is one of the people who sacrificed himself and didn't get a shield in the first challenge with the rafts and everything, he's going after a lot of the people who are once again not volunteering or putting themselves out there, specifically Tony. And so Bob H. kind of screams at Tony and peer pressures him to go first. And then of course, because statistically it's not likely they're going to guess the correct door, he doesn't get a shield, he doesn't get any money. Actually, no one in this challenge gets any money. It's actually kind of crazy. Now moving on to the banishment stage. Now at the banishment roundtable discussion, there's a couple names that have been thrown around, but the primary one is Tony. Bob H., who like I said was going after Tony in the money making portion of the competition, is pointing out again that Tony has been really selfish this entire time. He's not willing to waver on a lot of things, and he just seems like he's not really a team player. It's not even really good evidence that we're looking at, but it's just something that feels off and that feels frustrating, and that's what a lot of people latch on to, specifically with Tony as well. At one point, Dylan Efron does point the finger at Bob the drag queen and points to his over-the-top behavior and some other suspicious things that he's done to say that he might be a traitor. Doesn't seem like it's getting a lot of traction, but it is something worth pointing out that Dylan is pointing the finger at a traitor very early. There's a couple other names that are thrown around. Some people think that Ivor might have been the one that murdered Dorinda because she was screaming at him, the other night, and then she got murdered. But ultimately, a lot of people vote for Tony. At the end of the roundtable discussions, Rob, who is also somebody that competed on Survivor, starts to cast doubt on what Tony is saying, and he doesn't say, I think you're a traitor, but he kind of heavily implies that, well, I didn't think you were, but now I'm not so sure. And it seems like Rob's word does carry quite a lot of weight with everybody. So Tony very handily gets the most votes and reveals that he's a faithful, and then he calls Rob a sellout or something before he walks out. At the end of episode 3, we have the traitors getting a very special message from the producers telling them that they have to do a certain task in order to be able to kill somebody this night. So essentially the traitors have to nominate 3 people, put the 3 people's names in this little mini coffin that's in a wine cellar in a secret passageway behind a bookcase in one of the rooms in the castle, and then whoever they decide to kill, they can put a nail in that coffin and then that person is murdered. This is the kind of shit that I like when the show does. I like when they make it more difficult for the traitors to do things, so they can't just do whatever the fuck they want. They actually have to be strategic as well, and they also kind of have to struggle. So the traitors manage to meet in the wine cellar area. They're trying to figure out what to do. At various points, people are going to the adjoining room, not realizing that the traitors are meeting in the secret passageway room, and they hear things because everyone's talking really fucking loud. And then finally, Gabby, who's going in to get some water. You see her peeking over to see what the fuck is going on, just as Carolyn and Danielle are walking out of the room and being very suspicious. Now let's talk about episode 4, because holy shit, there was a lot that happened in episode 4. Amazing cliffhanger that we had in episode 3, where Gabby seemingly catches the traitors coming out of the wine cellar. Find out at the beginning of episode 4 that she didn't see people coming out, but she was very, very certain that she heard Danielle's voice, and rather than confronting them in the moment, she decided to kind of run off before they catch her. Before everybody goes to bed, Alan gathers everyone outside and reveals what's going on with the whole coffin situation. We find out that Jeremy, Nikki, and Sierra are the 3 that have been put in the coffin. Jeremy, when asked to plead to the traitors to spare him, says something to the effect of, "I'd be willing to work with you guys if you spare my life," which is kind of an interesting strategy to kind of appeal to them. Nikki points to the fact that she is very physically fit, being a former WWE fighter, and that she would be really helpful in a lot of the challenges that put money in the pot. And then Sierra said something like, "I am going to hunt down the fucking traitors. I'm going to catch the fucking traitor. If you are a traitor, you better be fucking worried because I'm going to get you." Which, like, I don't know why that would appeal to the traitors.
You know I'm a fucking faithful. I hope you believe me when I say that. I want to find you and fucking hunt you down.
So in the end, they decide to go with Jeremy to murder. Stay at breakfast before Jeremy is revealed to have been murdered. Gabby is talking to Robin and what's her name? Not Trishelle, because there's Trishelle in season 2. There's a Trishelle and then there's a what is her name? The one that hates Tom Sandoval. And then a couple other people in the room. She divulges the whole fact that she overheard Danielle possibly coming out of a secret passageway. Robin, you know, being a real housewife and feeling like any sort of secret or any sort of bit of information has to immediately be confronted at some sort of gathering, decides that she wants to bring it up at breakfast and confront Danielle about it. Danielle looks like she's a deer in a fucking headlights. And then she was like, "Oh yeah, I was in there with Dylan." And then Bob the drag queen chimed in and was like, "Oh yeah, I went in there for a couple minutes too." And because Gabby cannot believe that Bob the drag queen could possibly be suspicious, just kind of like, "Oh damn, I thought I had a clue, but I guess not." I'm just like, girl, are you fucking serious right now? Now let us talk about the money portion of the competition. Lifting heavy statues challenge, because apparently everything has to come down to physical prowess. The contestants have to take these Stonehenge statues, or like smaller versions of them, and lug them up the hill like a mile away to the top of the hill, and they have to kind of set them up. There's like 3 pieces that they have to put together or something. Each statue has their name inscribed into them, and the first 10 statues that can be carried up and fully put together, 10 contestants, will not only put money in the pot, but will also get a shield. The main takeaway at the end of this episode, talking about how they got money in the pot, everybody's happy, whatever, and then Bob the drag queen out of fucking nowhere decides to say, "Well, yeah, I think we're all kind of thinking the same thing, that one of the 3 guys who was brought in episode 2 is probably a traitor." And I mean, he's correct, but it was like very, very out of nowhere, very out of context. He just kind of throws that little jab out there for no reason. And then Boston Rob is like, "What the fuck, are you kidding me right now?" So then Boston Rob kind of goes a little bit ballistic. He appeals to Dylan, the person who was throwing Bob the drag queen's name out there at the prior roundtable discussion. There's a couple people that seem to be a little suspicious of Bob the drag queen, but not to the point of like doing anything about it yet. And Rob is going around like, "We have the numbers, we have enough people to vote for Bob the drag queen, we have to do it tonight." And he keeps saying that his goal is to get other people to throw the name out for him so he doesn't have to do it. He also goes to his fellow traitors and kind of tells them that the numbers are out there and that his consensus is that people are going to vote this way and we have to get on board. So come banishment table, Boston Rob, I think, thinks that he has set himself up in a situation where everybody is going to follow this narrative and pin it on Bob the drag queen. However, people start talking about Sierra, they start talking about Nikki, they're starting to talk about the whole coffin situation and who was better at being performative about being a faithful or not. And then Boston Rob, rather than letting the conversation come up organically, decides to just throw out Bob the drag queen's name.
Bob the drag queen.
And just basically start World War III at the table. Everyone's yelling at each other. Dylan jumps in and starts trying to accuse Bob the drag queen as well.
Bob is an amazing actor. I grew up with an actor.
Not a good one.
That was not nice.
at the voting stage, there's a couple people that vote for Sierra. There's like 1 or 2 people that vote for Nikki. The vast majority of the people, including all of the other traitors, vote for Bob the drag queen. So everyone's really fucking excited, patting themselves on the back. I think people like flipped chairs over at some point. However, Danielle's really fucking upset. Carolyn is a little bit like, you know, taken aback about how everything happened. It's, you know, emotional. They're in a little bit of shock. They have to pretend to be super excited. And Rob feels like he has a lot of power now. Okay, so now that we have talked about Now that we've talked about what happened in all the episodes, I want to talk a little bit about our traitors and just discuss how they've been performing thus far. Now, starting off with Bob the drag queen, you know, because he just got fucking banished, I think he definitely had a lot of immediate strengths that, if were utilized better, could have carried him very far in this competition. I really immediately liked Bob the drag queen. I thought he was really funny and personable. You could tell he's like a very popular person around the house. There are so many people, most notably Gabby Windy, you could tell were like starstruck by seeing him when he showed up at the castle. And anytime anyone wanted to suggest that he could be suspicious or be a traitor, people just didn't want to hear it because they like him. And I think that's something that can carry a lot of weight when you are a traitor. He also is very theatrical, and that's not something that you typically see of a traitor. A lot of traitors really try to keep a low profile to avoid incriminating themselves or doing anything to draw attention to them unnecessarily. And while yes, it can be a risk to be more theatrical and like saying a lot and putting yourself out there because you can incriminate yourself, I think when done correctly, it can be a really great distraction and diversion and make people look in other directions because they wouldn't suspect you, because most traitors don't act like that. So I think if handled properly, his natural personality and theatrical over-the-top persona could have been helpful as a cover for his true identity as a traitor. Obviously, he's got some weaknesses because, you know, he did just get eliminated in episode 4. I think one of the main problems with Bob the drag queen as a traitor was that he was very arrogant. It seemed like Bob the drag queen was just so convinced that his plans were foolproof and that whatever he said was like the gift of God.
And that was a lie because I don't believe in God.
And that anything he wanted to do was just going to work out flawlessly. I don't think he had the objectivity to be able to see other alternative positions. I also think the fact that he wasn't open to feedback was really frustrating, at least for me as a viewer to watch. I think Carolyn has a lot of good ideas and a lot of valid points that she was trying to bring up, and it was frustrating to see that he and Danielle just like did not want to hear it. Bob the drag queen was just a little bit too emotionally charged when people would accuse him of being a traitor. I think a lot of the decisions that he made in the competition were very much based on his emotional response to things and not like with a cool, even head. Now, I am a very emotional person and I cry like a lot, so I understand that it's frustrating to be accused of being too emotional and having that be like a negative thing. However, there were a lot of times where I feel like if he had a little bit more ability to rein it in, he could have made a more rational decision. Like when Dylan was going after him, he just like started deflecting and saying all these insults rather than giving plausible responses to what Dylan was throwing at him to refute the fact that he could have been a traitor. But ultimately, I think his fatal flaw was just like going after Boston Rob for no fucking reason. It just didn't make any fucking sense that he did that to somebody he knows is a traitor and that has the capacity to take him out like that. Ultimately, that's what led to Bob the drag queen's demise. He picked a fight with Boston Rob and he was absolutely not prepared to handle the consequences. So ultimately, I think I would give Bob the drag queen a C-. I don't know if I've ever seen a season of this show where a traitor went home that early. I'm not saying that it's ever happened before, but just based on the seasons I've seen, I have not seen somebody get picked out that early. And I feel like that's kind of like a reflection of not being a great traitor. Now, talking about Danielle, I would say her strengths are the fact that she was on Big Brother and apparently that's a strategic show. There are a lot of weaknesses, I feel like, with Danielle as a traitor. I know that she performed better than Bob the drag queen, but I feel like she has a lot of similar issues. I think she put her friendship with Bob the drag queen ahead of kind of thinking rationally about the fact that Bob the drag queen is a liability. Felt like she just got too attached to the plan and too attached to her preconceived idea of how things were going to pan out. I think she's also a really bad fucking actor.
I keep thinking someone's going to take Brittany out to blame it on me.
She doesn't listen to anybody. Whenever Carolyn tried to point things out, similar with Boston Rob, she would cut her off and be like, well, I don't understand. Why can't you give me an explanation of why you want to do this? And then Carolyn would try to say it and she'd be like, well, that's a dumb explanation. Why can't you give me an explanation? And she's like, bitch, just let her talk.
Carolyn, why not Dorinda?
She is just good to have here. She is doing she's doing what? You still haven't given me anything. Okay.
And finally, I mean, I think it's definitely a weakness that people were already onto her. There are a lot of people that have clocked into Danielle's weird behavior. If not for the fact that Gabby is like pretty gullible, it seems. I mean, she literally caught Danielle coming and having a secret rendezvous in a secret passage room. The room that happened to have the coffin that put 3 of the contestants in for murder. And I don't really think that's like a fantastic measure of a traitor. I would ultimately give Danielle a C. She's still here. She's really arrogant for not being very good at this game. It's 2 a.m. now. I'm really fucking tired. Let's now talk about Carolyn. Now, here's the thing. I felt like Carolyn's energy initially was kind of all over the place. I've never seen Survivor before. I don't know who this woman was. I felt like she was going to be the first person out because I could not read what she was going to do from one moment to the next. However, after watching 4 episodes of Traitors Season 3, I actually think that Carolyn is the best traitor that we have so far. She, I think, has some of the most strategic, objective perspectives to provide in the turret for the traitors. I feel like she has a lot of really good valid points that don't really get heard because Bob and Danielle just have a path of what they want to do and they will not listen to any other opinions. They've even said that many times. Carolyn was correct in pointing out that getting rid of Dorinda in the first murder was a really bad idea because Dorinda would be a phenomenal shield to have in the house. And, you know, Bob and Danielle did that anyways, and I felt like that was stupid, and I agree with Carolyn. Bob and Danielle very much like lead with their emotions. They're trying to do too much. Carolyn, you know, she's a little kooky. She's a little bit quirky with her personality, but I feel like she does a pretty good job of like keeping an even keel. Carolyn is also the only traitor who has not had anybody look at her thus far. I think really her only weakness that I can think of is the fact that no one listens to her, and that's not even really her fault. But for the fact that she has insane personalities to deal with, like Boston Rob, Bob the Drag Queen, and Danielle, I feel like any rational person would listen to her. It's just you have 3 very loud voices that are drowning her out. Her one fatal flaw, I will say, is being too fucking loud when they were talking in that room. She and Danielle just kind of burst out of the secret passage room and like don't really seem to have any awareness of the fact that people can hear her. So I feel like that's just one thing, if I had to give her a fatal flaw, that I would point out. Overall, I would give Carolyn an A-. If any of these idiots have to make it to the end, I would definitely think it's going to be her. Now moving on to Boston Rob. Here's the thing. Going into episode 4, I probably would have given Boston Rob like the best traitor award. He's respected by a lot of the players. He's well known by a lot of the players. You could tell, especially like when Tony got eliminated, his word carries a lot of weight with these contestants. He also is very experienced with strategic games. He was on Survivor like multiple times. He was on Deal or No Deal Island, whatever the fuck that is, but it looks strategic, I guess. He was on The Amazing Race a couple times. You name the competitive show, he's been in it. So I think that having that experience and knowing how to read people and work with different personalities is something that is very advantageous as a traitor when you're trying to manipulate. He also seems to just have good judgment in some of the things that he's trying to point out when they're discussing what to do with like a murder or something like that. Now, like I said, I think the first 3 episodes for Boston Rob were a very, very, very strong showing as far as traitor performance. Going into the 4th episode and the things that transpired in the 4th episode, I think he kind of lost me a little bit. On the one hand, yes, it was completely unnecessary for Bob the Drag Queen to open his mouth in that moment. The fact that he was just like basically thinking out loud. Nobody was talking, and then he's like, you know what? I think 3 of the men that were in crates in the 2nd episode, like one of them is definitely a traitor. Like that was just so fucking unnecessary. Also, just Bob the Drag Queen is a liability. Even if he didn't say that, there's a lot of random things that he's saying and doing that are very unhinged and very unpredictable. I don't think Boston Rob, though, did it in the correct way. I think he should have gone to the traitors immediately. He could have even just like waited for one other banishment, and then when they're in the turret, talk to Bob the Drag Queen about what happened. Be like, why the fuck did you say that? Or if he felt like he needed to get rid of Bob the Drag Queen in that moment, he could have like taken Danielle and Carolyn aside and was like, I'm doing this as a defensive move. I did not appreciate that he did that. I feel like he's saying and doing whatever the fuck, and I don't trust him anymore, and I need you guys to back me up, and this is exactly why I'm doing this. So they just don't think that he's going to just like do this randomly. But he didn't do that. He was trying to make it seem like everyone wanted Bob the Drag Queen out, which was not true. He acted purely because he was pissed off and he was emotional, and he just wanted to get Bob the Drag Queen out because he was mad. It just seemed like the certainty with which he led the charge. To Wes's point, there's no other way that he could have known that certainly that Bob the Drag Queen was a traitor if you aren't also a traitor. And I feel like he could have acted in a different way. I also think the way that he was talking to some of the other faithful, it just felt like it struck a nerve, and it was too obvious that it struck a nerve. If Boston Rob made it look a little bit more authentic, like, hey, I was looking at Bob the drag queen, and you know, that guy just doesn't shut the fuck up. Like, I don't know, there's something weird about him, and I think we need to bring it up at the table. That, I felt like that would have been a little bit more natural than Bob the drag queen, it's time to fucking go. We got the numbers. We have to get him out. You're done, buddy. You have to leave. You're very obviously reacting to what he said earlier in the episode, and it's very, very clear that that's what's happening. I think Boston Rob's move is kind of putting a timer on him, because now he's pissed off Danielle. Now he's made Carolyn also feel like she could get thrown under the bus at any given moment. And I feel like now Boston Rob has painted himself in a way where he is no longer somebody that's like easy to work with, and Carolyn and Danielle can very easily turn on him. Taken everything together, I would give Boston Rob a B-. I think if this hadn't happened in the 4th episode, I would have given him an A-, similar to Carolyn. Yes, it was good that Bob the drag queen is out. I understand strategically why he wanted to do that. I just think the way that he did it looked extremely suspicious, and there's no way that the other contestants are going to let that go. Okay, I want to now do a section just talking about the faithfuls. First of all, I think it should be noted first and foremost that Dylan Efron is the MVP of this entire fucking season. I love this man. I'm obsessed with him. I love the fact that he is like actually related to a proper celebrity more so than any of these people are, and he still is like starstruck by seeing Boston Rob. I think that's adorable. Very, very nice, very sweet guy. It's like very increasingly apparent that he is just living out his absolute best life, trying to figure out who the traitors are. Like, this is a dream of his, possibly. I could see him doing very well as a faithful. I could also see him doing very well as a traitor recruit. I could see that being a really phenomenal choice, and I think he could kind of flip the script and be an unexpected traitor and carry that off very convincingly in episodes to come if that's what the traitors decide to do. Also wanted to just bring up the fact, you know, I'm a Real Housewives of Potomac fan. It's really continuously funny to me that Robin constantly talks about how she has a really great judge of character, and she A, is constantly fighting allegations that her husband Juan Dixon is constantly cheating on her, and B, she has never properly clocked a traitor 1 second in this game so far. Once again, cannot stress enough how disappointed I am that Dorinda is not here. Just thought I'd want to throw that out there.
I'll tell you how I'm doing. Not well, bitch.
Tom Sandoval. I need to discuss this briefly. I am aware of Scandoval. I understand what happened. He is extremely hated. People don't like him. Obviously, Trishelle, whatever her name is, I don't know. Whatever that one girl's name is, hates him. It seems like he's just an extremely unpopular person. And I know on the internet, just through cultural osmosis, that he's a very unpopular person and he's kind of a scumbag. I am trying my damnedest to keep that opinion of him separate from just how I view him in the show, because I'm just curious to see what my thoughts and opinions are of him being a little bit separated from Scandoval. And after kind of watching him over the past 4 episodes, I feel like there is absolutely nothing going on in this man's head. It's just bad vibes and no thoughts. That's just kind of Tom Sandoval's vibe. I don't know this person, so it's like not like, I don't know. It's weird talking about reality TV people, because even though it is like an altered form of reality, it is like real people. So I don't want to like go dogging on this person that I don't know. Tom Sandoval, though, gives horrendous vibes just immediately. He always has like very wide eyes. He's staring into your soul constantly. He looks like he's about to murder you at all times. He also was sweating constantly. Like, what the fuck is that about? He was at breakfast for all of maybe 17 minutes and he has massive pit stains. And he also just has like the absolute worst instincts about anybody.
Faithfuls like Bob the drag queen. I feel good about Carolyn.
I'm trying to give Tom Sandoval the benefit of the doubt just purely for the purposes of the show, but even just from what I have seen from the traitors, he is a bit of a fucking mess. Wes, I don't know anything about the challenge. I don't know what the challenge is. I only know that Trishelle and CT were on it from last season. I have no idea how that game works. I immediately just caught the ick from this man. I just caught the ick from him immediately when he came in and said he is definitely the most accomplished person in this area, and that definitely none of the housewives know him, and that he's not surprised by that. And I was just like, okay, you can shut the fuck up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think of Traitors Season 3, what you think is going to happen next. I think what I'm going to do for the coverage for these videos, I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but whatever. It's 2:30 in the morning. Literally nothing matters at this point. I think I'm going to cover this bi-weekly because doing weekly videos, especially the video length that I usually like to do for my content, is very exhausting. So I think I'm going to cover them in batches of 2. So the next upload I do will be about episodes 5 and 6, and then we'll just kind of proceed like that until the finale. I think that makes the most sense, and I think that'll give me enough content to talk about a lot of different stuff in my videos. So look out for another video in the next 2 weeks, and then after that I'll do my Only Murders season 4 autopsy, and then go into the suggestions that you guys left from last season's coverage of Only Murders, which you guys left in the comment section about shows that I should cover. Got a lot of amazing suggestions, so I'm really excited to talk about all of that stuff. But in the meantime, we are in Traitors mode right now, and I'm very excited to see what happens with this season. In the meantime, I'm going to go to fucking bed, and for that I'm going to pay attention to my cat, of course, because otherwise she's going to murder me in my sleep. So bye.